Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the Acrolinks webinar, How Content Optimization Tools and Effective Quality Management Practices Can Reduce Overall Program Sustainment Costs. My name is Robin Emiliani, and I'm the Director of Marketing here at Acrolinks. You've probably seen a few emails come across from me or seen my posts on some of the social channels. And I'd like to kick things off with providing a couple housekeeping items to share. We will be holding a question and answer session at the very end of this webinar, but feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation, and you can do so using the question panel probably on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you happen to have any technical difficulties, I can help address those. So feel free to chat with me using the chat panel, which is just below the question panel on the right-hand side of your screen. We are recording today's presentation, and I plan to send out either on Wednesday or Thursday this week. I'll send out a link so that you can access the recording as well as the slides. And now I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Kent Taylor, who is the EVP and co-founder of Acrolinks North America. And Kent is a 35-year industry veteran and recovering TechPubs director. He is an engineer by birth defect, a manager by accident, confirmed technology junkie, and a quality zealot. Kent has driven development and deployment of everything from large-scale, multi-language, multimedia information supply chains to ISO 9000 certified publication processes. And currently, Kent is an active leader at Acrolinks, and he continues to work with leading-edge technology in the field he knows and loves, while satisfying his passion for quality. And without further ado, I would like to make Kent the presenter here. All right, Kent, you're on.
Okay, thank you, Robin. And thank you all out there for attending. Hope I will show you some things that you haven't seen before and give you some ideas that you might want to think about going forward. So let's first talk about what information quality management does for you. Internal processes, time and cost reduction. We typically see authoring savings on the order of 10%. If you could use 10% more time to do your job, that comes in handy. We see reductions in editing costs on the order of 60 to 75%. Translation costs about 15% or more. And reductions in time to global market on the order of 5%. We also see some end user benefits above and beyond cost reduction. Improved readability, especially among people for whom English is not their primary language, and in general poor readers. That results in reduced support calls and increased customer satisfaction and just overall lower purchasing and product lifecycle costs in general. So keep those thoughts in mind as why you might want to do some quality management in your information development environment. There's potential for big savings in the federal government arena. There have been studies showing that sustainment costs, that's the life cycle costs, represent 75% or more of the total weapon system's life cycle cost. And sustainment costs are basically operations, maintenance, troubleshooting, repair, and replacement costs over the life of the product. We know that documentation quality, readability, consistency, and accessibility can have a significant impact on the quality and cost of those components of sustainment or life cycle costs. And the premise here is that a small investment in content quality management can have a relatively significant impact on downstream sustainment costs and improve operational readiness at the same time. If people can understand the content, things flow better. So what is this content quality management about? Well, let's start with content and define the parts one at a time. Content are the words, the tables, and the images that the end users see and interpret to help them understand, purchase, install, operate, etc., and you repair and deal with your company's products. Content quality basically means conformance to standards, your own standards, style standards, terminology guidance, spelling, grammar, etc. Consistency, understandability, accessibility are all quite important. And of course, accuracy and completeness. Conformance to standards and the consistency, accessibility, understandability can all be measured objectively. Accuracy and completeness tend to be more of a subjective measurement. So what is content quality management? Well, quality management, think Six Sigma, ISO 9000, or Kaizen, all have the same basic principles at their core. That's that you document your processes and your standards. You have written standards, which is true of most technical publications, organizations. You have a style guide, one or more style guides. You have terminology guidance, you have a dictionary, and you have some general grammar rules that you follow. Those are all standards. You also have the concept of quality assurance, which is individual real-time feedback to the people while they're doing their job, telling them how well they're conforming to standards. In a manufacturing environment, that would be occasionally, if you're running a drill press, you would occasionally stop and accurately measure the diameter of the hole that you're drilling. If it's okay, you continue on. In the publishing environment, that's a little more tricky, but I have some tricks up my sleeve that I'll be showing you shortly that actually enable that quality assurance and real-time feedback. Second part of quality management is quality control. That's independent metrics and reports at various handoff points in the process, generally done by an independent quality control department. And the last tenet of quality management is continuous quality improvement. The general idea being if you can measure your quality and conformance to standards, you can make changes to your process and observe changes in quality. If you get a positive, make a change to the process, get positive improvement in quality, you keep the change. If it doesn't add anything to the quality, it might not be worth doing. But the focus is always on continuous improvement. So let's dig in a little bit deeper now to content quality and conformance to standards. The standard English dictionary is in fact a standard. You probably have some domain-specific or company-specific terminology. Certainly your marketing department or legal department is managing trademarks and service marks that are unique to your company. There's the generally accepted rules of grammar, industry and corporate content standards. For the federal environment, there's ASD STE 100 Simplified Technical English Standard that's required in some projects and programs. There's also federal government plain English guidelines required by, actually mandated by law for public-facing content, websites, documents, tax forms, etc. There are some public domain style guides, the AAP style guide, the Chicago Manual, STC, and also semi-public, like the Microsoft style guide is available publicly. But most large companies work with company proprietary style guides. This is our way of communicating our voice to the customer. So you have some standards to deal with. What about content quality? Well, that's conformance to standards, and we can help with that. Consistency is really important, and let's take a deeper look at consistency. Why is it important? Chances are your company has content going to your customers from multiple sources: marketing and sales material, support material, tech docs, training, and development, all of whom may be talking about the same piece of equipment or the same component or the same concept using different words. Can be rather confusing to your customers and can add to translation costs as well. Another form of consistency, this is real data from a real software system. We found in this rather large software system 51 ways that developers in the user interface told the users that the start date should come before the end date, or the end date should come after the start date. Again, a source of confusion, and those 51 UI strings in this case were translated to 35 languages at a cost of about $4,500 to $5,000 of additional cost, unnecessary cost, where one or maybe two UI strings would have done the job. Understandable. There are a number of things that lead to understandable documentation or content. Probably one of the bigger ones is wordiness. We've got a collection of about 100 phrases that we've found over the years that don't really add anything to the sentence other than words and translation costs. Paying 20 or 30 cents per word for translation, less is more. So this is an issue of understandability, especially for non-native speakers, where these words just aren't necessary at all. Absolutely the biggest impediment to understanding is long sentences. And I've got a couple of examples that are, pretty much make the point. In other cases, such as when the instantiated subdesign language is VHDL, the Acme 2 software uses the type of the parameter, generic, or both in the instantiated entity to determine how to interpret the value, so that the Acme 2 software interprets the value of 123 as a string if the VHDL parameter is of a type string. Perfectly clear, right? I don't think so. Some additional examples. The record in this all came from a single document, 83 words, no hope of understanding. Accessibility. What do we mean by accessibility? Well, that would be findability. I can find the information that I'm looking for. And there are well-known aspects of findability in the electronic environment, in the internet environment. Search engine optimization is a way to make sure that your content can be found, and that consists of using appropriate keywords, the kind of words that people search for when they're looking for something. Place the keywords very important that they're in the title, appear occasionally in a heading in the body at optimal densities, somewhere between about 4 and 10%. Any more than that, and the search engines tend to treat it as spam. Helps if your content is in fact an authoritative source, and authoritative is defined by how many inbound links, references, and searches happen on your site. But actually a really big part of search engine optimization is just having relevant, high-quality content. Search engines reward you for having good content is kind of the bottom line. This is an example of a search optimization dialog showing the keywords and priorities, frequencies, etc., to help you make your content findable. Some suggestions and warnings, things you might want to do. Keyword density is not enough. You might want to add a couple more keywords. The main subject of this particular content was how to install a Topspin 360, and it doesn't show up in the title. So you really want to think about that. And so on. Optimizing for search is pretty important, especially in an operational environment where it's important to be able to find what you're looking for to fix a problem or complete a task. So what about accuracy and completeness? That's something that software can't help much with. Accuracy and completeness are really attributes that have to be measured by human beings. We're not doing away with writers, and we're not doing away with editors. We're doing away with the repetitive, objective, measurable aspects of quality. So, content quality management. Documented processes and standards, that's pretty straightforward. I'm sure you all have the standards and more or less well-documented processes. Quality assurance, individual real-time feedback. In a strictly manual editing environment, that's tough. Pretty difficult to deal with on a real-time continuous basis. Same with quality control. The editors provide a fair degree of quality control if they have time, or if you even have editors anymore. Continuous quality improvement, well, you can kind of manage that in a less quantitative way. So let's talk about how we deal with quality assurance and quality control with some software help. I'm going to use Acrolinx software as an example because that's what I get paid to do, but there are other systems out there, certainly spell checkers and Microsoft grammar checkers, pretty efficient. But you need to have some kind of software out there to work in real time. In our environment, we check spelling, grammar, style, and terminology. That would be deprecated terms. We also have the ability to check for reuse at the phrase and sentence level, and an assessment of SEO, or search engine optimization. We provide two scores, kind of a qualitative score between high and low quality, and a checking score, which is an error rate. It's the number of issues found per 10,000 words. We normalize it to 10,000 words so you can compare content between different documents of different length. In this case, we found 4 spelling issues, 2 grammar issues, 11 style issues, 4 opportunities for reuse. This document is not optimized. That's pretty clear. and terminology is not quite up to snuff either. So let's move on. This is the real-time guidance. First screen was real-time feedback about general quality assessment. This is the real-time feedback. After running a check on the document you've been working on, we'll highlight the issues in the text and provide feedback on each of the highlighted areas. Fill the topspin registration form out online as a separated verb part, which is very difficult for a non-native speaker and adds to translation costs. We'll provide the drop-in suggestion of fill out the topspin registration form. Grammar issues highlighted in blue obviously should be the environment provides sufficient ventilation. Check in magenta is a terminology issue, and in this case the company has settled on one term for words like check, verify, confirm, validate, make sure, be sure, ensure. And the preferred term is make sure. Check is ambiguous. It can be a noun, a verb, or an adjective. Make sure has only one meaning. And for translation purposes and readability purposes, unambiguous words or phrases are much better and more consistent. What else? You see some highlights down here in gray. This is a demo document. You wouldn't see all of these sentences clumped together in a single document or on a single page. We harvested these sentences from a collection of files. And this is just 4 ways that 4 different writers, or maybe the same writer at different times, introduced a package list. And the fact that they're highlight indicates that there's an approved sentence in the reuse repository for introducing package list. And in this case, the approved sentence is the following items come in your topspin shipment. So this sentence is pretty close. The other sentences, not so close. These things come in the topspin package. Please find these parts in topspin shipment. Kind of, this writer looks like he was getting paid by the word. But all of those highlights will drive the writer toward the approved sentence. The following items come in your topspin shipment. So that's an example of real-time guidance or quality assurance. The next part of quality management is quality control, those independent metrics and reports. The Acrolink software is able to do checks in the background and aggregate data, which is very helpful for the editors. List of files that were checked, color-coded red, yellow, and green. Checking scores, so you can see how far into the red they go. As a general rule, 100 or less is a good score for going to translation. If you're into machine translation, maybe a score of 50 or less with a couple of additional rules in there specific to machine translation will ease the process considerably. Between 100 and 200 is kind of yellow. The point there is the yellow ones, you want to look at the details in the individual reports and see what was going on. The small number of errors may be completely not substantive at all, and they're okay the way they are. But with a score over 200, probably need to do some editing, and you can do that by going to an individual report, looking at it, or by opening the document and running a check. At a higher level, quality control ends up in management dashboards. can look at all different aspects of quality. Number of words checked over time. See, must have been time to ship something here. In third, what are we at? I guess that's month. In March and April, must have been a shipping time. There's a whole lot of checking going on. I can also see what kind of, what distribution of issues there might be. And as you might suspect, writers are pretty good about spelling and grammar. Very, very small percentage of grammar and spelling issues. Style and terminology generally make up the bulk of the issues that are found. They also account for the a fair amount of readability and translatability. Consistent terminology is really important. Call the same thing or the same concept by the same name all the time makes life easy for your reader, makes life easy for the translator. And avoid style-type translation issues. Translation issues would include things like long sentences, separated verb parts, split infinitives, noun strings, verb strings. There are about a dozen known issues there in the style department that cause problems for non-native speakers in translation. So in terms of metrics, there are some commonly accepted metrics, especially in the aerospace and defense environment. Reading levels used to be required. The latest spec no longer requires reading levels, but people still use them. And they're somewhat helpful, but they're also very easy to trick and not very accurate. They're just based on basically sentence length and word length or number of syllables in the word and summarized. And this is just a kind of a fun example of how you can trick any of the reading indexes. Here's the sentence. This line hard read is, but good flash score makes. Scores grade level 1 and over 100% for reading ease. By the same token, this sentence is perfectly understandable, but it generates a terrible flash score. Grade level 16 and barely readable according to flash score. The scores that we generate and other programs may generate are a lot more meaningful. They're based on literally hundreds of aspects of readability. Another trick with Flesch-Kincaid, the text here is identical. There's no difference in the text. The only difference is the one on the left has paragraph numbers, the one on the right doesn't. One on the left with paragraph numbers is a 7th grade reading level. The one on the right without the paragraph numbers is the 9th grade reading level because the algorithm interprets for dot as one word in one sentence. So it brings the average way down. Now, to be honest, our approach will also generate a different score, but rather than this roughly 30% different score, our score difference is about 2.5 or 3%, as we're measuring against 100 aspects, and sentence length is just one of them. So, again, to summarize, quality levels based on 100 attributes of content quality, including all these important parts. And we really believe the composite quality scores are much better indicators of readability and excellent predictors of translatability. In fact, that's something we can track. We can see a strong correlation between quality scores and translation cost and time. The other thing that you want in terms of quality control and management is some actionable metrics, granular enough that they're meaningful but also actionable. Get a display of the most common issues, and I can tell you from experience with probably thousands of documents that long sentences are everywhere. They're always the number 1 or 2 hit in all the content that we check. They're also the most expensive to fix or the most expensive to translate. So a little remedial training about the importance of long sentences, and in this case future tense needless words and ing words are all translation issues, and just managing those 4 more actively has a significant impact on readability and translation costs. Oh, again, why would you want to bother with this content quality management business? You know, same summary from the beginning. It reduces costs. It adds benefits for the end users. And some recent information that we got from one of our favorite customers, that improving findability, voice, spelling, grammar, and terminology actually leads to measurable increases in revenue, pretty significant increases in revenue. And some of the underlying reasons that they're seeing that connection ends up with what the customers actually said. Technical information is extremely important. It has a very high impact on their perception of product quality. It affected their overall satisfaction, and the real clincher here is 93% said it affected their perception of the quality of the company. Now, relating that back to the beginning where we were saying we can reduce sustainment costs, well, if you can get your customers that happy with the quality of your content, they'll be doing a lot better on the job. So here's my hypothesis for the, especially for the aerospace and defense industry, where the drive to reduce costs is very high. TechPubs, the creation of the content, is about 5% of the acquisition cost, total acquisition cost of a system. Sustainment activities are about 75% of life cycle cost. The other 25% is acquisition cost. So we're talking about a very small piece of sustainment total life cycle cost. But the tech hubs can impact literally 100% of the sustainment activities, all of which is done by either documents, individual manuals, or online interactive technical manuals, or diagnostics coming directly from the system. That content, the clarity of the content, obviously impacts the sustainment activities. The more clear, consistent, readable, and understandable you can make your content, the better off your end user is going to be. Good documentation can reduce sustainment activity times, operator-induced failures, unnecessary returns, incorrect replacement or part orders, and ultimately the overall sustainment costs. At the same time, good documentation, clear, consistent, readable, and maybe focused toward the simplified technical English standard, especially when you're operating with non-native speakers, can improve successful task completion, field maintenance and repair performance, and overall operational readiness. bottom line, I see content quality management as a low cost, very high payback potential opportunity for literally any company in the business of supporting their customers. So, down to the real bottom line, we've been very successful, our customers have been very successful in the commercial environment. We're just breaking into the federal government and aerospace and defense environment, and we're looking for a couple of innovative programs or program managers that would like to work with us to prove the hypothesis in the ASD and federal government environment. We'll provide the software to anyone that will participate in a 12-month proof of concept by implementing quality content management processes and tools, and track maintenance costs to prove the content quality management hypothesis. And of course, we would like to make that public and have a big impact on operational readiness and cost reduction, especially during this sequestering period. With that, I will open the session to questions and answers. Robin, do we have anything out there?
Hi, Kent. Looks like it's your lucky day. No questions today. So, unless you see any that have come through.
No, not on my screen. Well, I thank you all for attending, and my contact information is up on the screen. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have, or hopefully a volunteer or two will show up. With that, I'll say good night and have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.